everyone, welcome to Cinema4D R25. If you've never used Cinema4D before, you're in the right place, and if you have and you notice that this interface is different or different from other tutorials you've seen, that's because R25 has a different layout. In the past, Cinema4D looked something like this. Different icons, lighter color, slightly different interface. Now it looks more like this. The icons are different in some slightly different places. If you'd like your layout to go back to this original format, you can do that pretty easily. You tick this notch to the left, click standard, and now our layout matches the old layout. So that's what you'd want to do if you're more comfortable working in this setup, but for now we will work in the new layout. So let's get started. Let's see what we can do. So this is our 3D view. As you can see here, we have our object manager over here where we can create an object. So if we click this cube button right here, we now have a cube in our viewport here. The way to look around in the viewport is we have these buttons over here. So we have move camera, scale camera, and rotate camera. You can also hold down 1 and left click for move, 2 and left click for scale, and 3 left click for rotate. What I do is I hold down Alt, I'm on Windows, Alt left click for rotate, Alt middle click for move, Alt right click for scale. Cool. There's also the active view button right here, so if we click that, we can see our cube from different perspectives. So there's the top view, the front view, and the right view, and our perspective view. If you click the middle mouse button, you can zoom into any of those views, and if you click it again, you can zoom out. If you're ever in your scene and you get lost, you can't find your cube anywhere, you don't know what's going on in the scene, you can click on an object, go to the 3D view, and click O, the O key, and that'll snap you to that object. This over here is the attribute manager. So this is where we can see all the different attributes of the cube. So we can see its size, which we can actually drag and change. We can see how many segments it's made out of. We actually can't see that unless we change the shading type of the cube. So if we go to display, go to garage shading lines, we can now see the lines that this cube is made up of. And if we change these values, we're now breaking up the cube into different segments, so it can be edited differently. So let's see how to move around this cube. So we have these 3 arrows and these 3 dots. So got to be careful because sometimes you might grab one of those dots by accident when you don't mean to. So we can translate our cube in the z-axis, x-axis, y-axis. And you can also do that over here in the coordinates attributes. You can do the same things. You can rotate the cube. You can rotate also over here, the rotate button. And we can, with these dots, we can scale the cube. So you can see, I guess you won't see those attributes change over here yet, but you can scale with those. So now we can move around, we can move our cube. You can also move the cube without pressing any of those. You can just click on the cube and left click. These buttons will move the cube in 2 different axes at the same time. Cool. So now we've got our cube. Let's check out some of these other options. So what if we want to edit this cube? To do that, you would use these buttons up here. We can edit the points, the edges, and the polygons. But we can't do that right now. You'll see if we click that, we're not able to click any of those points. And that's because our cube is an object, a cube object, a primitive right now from Cinema4D. If you left click and hold on that cube button, you can see all these different objects. But if you create one, you can't edit it unless you click this button, make editable. So if you click that, our cube is now editable. If we undo, you can actually click C as a shortcut to make that editable. So now we can edit our cube. So we're in the point mode, and if we click on a point with our move tool, we can move our points. We can also do that for edges, and we can do that for planes. So we can also hold drag. There's lots of different ways to move things around. Let's say we want to select multiple points at a time. You can shift select different points. Let's say you wanted to select the whole cube. That would take a pretty long time. So over here, we have live selection, which allows us to select many points at a time. You can adjust this with the bracket icons. And let's say you want to select even faster than that. You can go to rectangular selection and select the whole cube, and it'll all be selected. Great. So let's just jump on in. Let's start animating this guy. So down here is our animation timeline. You can see I have it set from 0 to 90. So in Cinema4D, the default is 30 frames a second. So here will be 1 second, so this will be a 3-second long animation. So technically 89 would make it 0 to 89 is 90 frames. So let's animate this guy. So to do that, we want to create keyframes. So at frame 0, with our cube selected, we can hover over this button, Record Active Objects. If we click that, we've now created a keyframe. It'll record all the attributes of our cube. You can see all these red dots all these were highlighted red to show that all these coordinates of the cube were all these coordinates were saved into this keyframe. So now if we hover this to frame 90, or 89 rather, and we move this cube, and we click Record Active Objects, we now have our cube attribute saved again with the x-axis translated. So now if we go over here and we click play, our cube is animated. Let's say we want to speed up this animation to be twice as fast. We can click this keyframe and drag it to 45. So now if we click play, it'll move faster in the beginning and it won't move at the end. You might have noticed earlier I ticked this back off, the point level animation. What that does is it allows you to animate individual points or just points in general on your object. So you can animate like this vertice moving in and out. By default, it's turned off just so that you don't make mistakes by accident if you're modeling and animating at the same time. But let's delete this keyframe really quick. So now if we turn this on, we select a vertice. Let's just do this guy, and we click keyframe, and then we go to 89. We move this guy out, and we click keyframe. Now our vertice, our point, is animated. Let's delete that guy. So now we've animated our cube. Let's check out a little bit more of the interface. So over here is the dope sheet. So if we drag it up, we can actually see our keyframes with bigger blocks. So it makes it a little bit easier to edit, and it has some more tools for animating. Over here is our coordinate manager. So it's kind of just a quicker way to see the coordinates of what you have selected. Over here are some different tools. So we've already seen the move, rotate, scale. We can scale our object, rotate it, move it. Over here is doodle. You can draw some notes on your screen. Spline, you can create different 3D paths that you can use to have your objects follow or whatnot. You can actually see that these tools change depending on what mode you're in. So if I'm in object mode, I have these tools. If I'm in point mode, I have these different editing tools. So let's check some of these out. So if I click on this cube, whoopsies, I'm still in spline mode. If I click, so let's not be in this mode. Let's go to move tool. If I go back to cube and I go to plane, and I click on the cube. There's some different tools here: bevel, extrude, inset. Let's check out extrude. If I click that, and I hover over this selection, and I drag out, I can jut out part of this cube with the extrude tool. So there's some useful modeling tools that pop up over here. We've seen the selection tools already. This search tool will just help you find, it'll create a pop-up dialog, which actually is popping up on my other monitor, but it'll help you find different tools faster. Another cool new feature of R25 is this asset browser. It's an updated asset browser, and it has a lot of cool stuff. There's a lot of different materials that we can choose from that Cinema4D is providing. I think the sample scenes are really awesome. There's different architectural scenes. So for example, we can check out this lake house, and it's really cool for learning about different ways to set up scenes, and it's a nice template to work off of. Also really cool are these motion graphics. So we can see it's already pre-made and ready to go. And also a way to switch between these scenes that are these tabs up here. It's a quick, easy way to switch between our scenes. You can also go to window and check out our scenes over here. Up here, just pretty much everything that you can do around the layout. Everything's kind of condensed into this menu up here. Let's move over here. So these are splines, so we can create a lot of different cool shapes. Let's see what we can do with them. So with circle selected, let's rotate this circle. Let's do it 90 degrees. We can check down here. So what do we do with this circle? Let's expand it a bit. Let's say we want our cube to run around in a circle. So how do we do that? Let's click on the cube, and we'll create a tag. And let's go to animation tag, align to spline. With tags, you can do a lot of different things with your objects. So if we click this tag, we can see its attributes. We want it to follow a spline path, which we created, circle. So if we drag circle into spline path, our cube is now going to follow this path. So if we click on this tag and we go to position, we can see that we can make our circle move around. So you can actually animate this. So if you click on position 0% and then go to the end of your timeline, go to 100%, now our cube is going to move around. So let's delete those, clear our scene, and let's reset this guy back to 0, 0. Something else you can do if you want to delete your animations is you can left click on these animation buttons, go to animation and go to delete track. That's going to delete all my translate animations, keyframes in my entire scene. Delete track. And we can also, delete individual keyframes as well. So cool. Now our cube is back to normal. So we can create lots of different kinds of objects. We got this figure that we can mess with. We've got tube, a lot of cool objects. So while an object is in its primitive mode, before you click make editable, you can do, there's a lot of cool features you can do with different objects. So for a tube, for example, you can change the outer and inner radius. So, but if you go to make editable, that goes away. Now it's just an object that you have to edit individually by points or however. Let's see what else. Over here, well, over here is the text spline, so you can create text. Subdivision surface, so that's a really useful one. If we select our cube and we alt-click subdivision surface, it will make the cube a child of that object. So you can see that the cube has been subdivided, it has way more segments. If we click this subdivision surface object and we check down here in the attributes, we can see that it's been subdivided 2 more times. So we can make that less or more, and it's a really handy way to smooth out your objects. Let's unparent that cube and delete. If we create a sphere and we move it out here, we can, I'm going to show you a little bit about child and parent relations in the hierarchy. So if we make the sphere a child of this cube, that means we can edit this sphere however we want. But if we were to edit the cube, anything we do to the cube will also happen to the sphere. So making child-parent relationships is really useful. Like, let's say we want to make this an eyeball on, we want to give the cube some eyes, so we can drag the sphere into the cube. I'm going to turn back to Gorod shading, and we can control drag the sphere to make another one, and we'll make that a child of the cube as well, and we'll drag it over here. Now the cube has some eyes. I just shift-clicked both of them to select them both. And now if we move the cube around, it's going to keep those eyes, because the eyes are children of it. So let's delete those eyes. We can see what else we can mess with. So here's the cloner object. If we alt-click the cloner, it will automatically become a parent of the cube, and it will create so let's go back to grid. So what's going on here is the cloner has created many different cubes. So let's try and make this more visual to see. So if we drag some of these, we can see our cloner has cloned our cube, and now there are 9 of them. We can change how many cubes appear across which axis. So this is a really cool tool. We can change if we want the cubes to appear in a line. And there's a lot of different things you can do there. Let's check that out. Let's check out some deformers. So we can try out this bend guy. So if we make that a child of the cube, we can see this purple box is our deformer. So anything within it will be changed. So if we click bend and we go to strength and we make that increase, we can see that it's going to bend our cube. So that's a really cool, fun deformer. We can delete that. Let's see if there's another one that we can check out. How about explosion? So if we drag that under cube and we click it and we increase the strength, it's going to blow up our cube. And if we were to subdivide the cube and then blow it up, it's going to be circles. Let's delete that. So there's a lot of cool tools within here. Plane is just a blank object. So if you were to make a cube, a child of it, it's basically like a folder. It's just a blank object that is good for being a parent of other objects. It's good for grouping things together. And the last thing I'll show you is down here. We have camera, we have light, we have sky. Actually, that'll be second to last. First, there's one more thing, which is the material manager right here. So we'll click that, And we want to add some color to this cube before we go ahead and start adding lights and cameras. So let's spice this guy up first. So if we click this plus, we can create a material. If we double click that, we'll open up the material editor. Right off the bat, standard material just uses color and reflectance. You can see those are checked on. There's other properties like luminance, where if you click that, it'll add glow to the sphere. But for now, we'll just click color, and we can change the color in a lot of cool ways. We can drag over here. So we'll make this a blue sphere. And reflectance, there's a lot of different things going on here with reflectance. You can change how reflectant the material is there. You can change what kind of reflectance it has. So you can go ahead and play around with those. And then you can just drag that material onto your cube, and now it's blue. Cool. So let's see what this looks like if we were to go ahead and render out an image right now. So up here, you can click render view. And this is what our render would look like if we were to save an image. So it's just a blue sphere, black background, nothing special. Let's see what would happen if we added some lights into our scene. So let's say we add this point light. It's just one plain light. Now let's render that. So now you can see we're only seeing where the light is hitting on the sphere, or on the cube, sorry. So let's add some more dramatic lights. So let's click physical sky. So now we can see we have a sun over there and a whole skyline. So let's click render. And now it's getting a little more interesting, the lighting. Let's say we want to add a floor, infinite floor. So we can click here and go to floor. And our cube is under the ground, so let's drag it up. And let's make sure our light is not too close to the cube. We don't want it to be inside of it or anything. So let's try rendering here. Whoops. I accidentally clicked the picture viewer, which is totally fine. So this is what it would still look like if I were to click the render view. So I clicked render view. What the picture viewer will do is actually, that's what we would click when we want to do a final render. So let's check that out. So first, let's go to our render settings. So in our render settings, we can see we're using a standard renderer for Cinema4D. There's other options, like I have Octane Render installed, a third-party renderer, but there's different. You probably have these two. You can, but for now we'll just use standard. You can look into those another time. So for output for standard, I switch mine to 1920 by 1080. You can change that as you like. Frame rate is 30. If you wanted to, you can change the frame rate. So right now it's on the frame range current frame, so it'll just render one image wherever you're on in the timeline. So if I move to frame 30, it'll move that to 30. But you can also go to all frames, and that will render an animation if you have something going on across your scene. If you go to save, you can choose the output where that's going to save. So if I go to desktop and I create a folder, so I will do cube. So now let's give this a shot. So we'll do current frame and render to picture viewer. So now if I go into my folder and I go to desktop and I go to test, you can see I have my image. Very cool. Let's try all frames. Oh, we can also see that it took 1 second to render that. It's cool. It tells you how long each frame takes. So let's try rendering an animation real quick. So we'll do something really simple. We'll just spin this cube in a circle. So coordinates, let's do a keyframe right here at frame 0 and then go to 90, and we'll spin this 360 and we'll add a keyframe. So now it'll do that. So what we'll want to do is we'll go back to our render settings. We will go to all frames and it will render all frames. Right before I do that though, I'm going to create a camera. If you don't create a camera, it will render whatever your perspective is, but with camera, if we click that and we zoom out, we can see we just created a camera in that view. If we click this box right here, we snap into the camera view, and when we move around, the camera will also follow. But I like this view, and the reason for creating a camera is that there's a lot of different kinds of settings that you can find in its attributes. You can change the focal length, you can add depth of field and things like that. But for now, we'll just do this, and I'll click Render to Picture Viewer, and you can see it's now going to go ahead and it's going to render every frame for the animation. So you can see that the sphere is turning, and we'll get 90 frames of that animation, which you can then bring into a picture viewer, or a video editor, and create an animation. And there's one last thing that I wanted to go over that I didn't earlier, and in the object manager you'll notice all these little dots and these check marks. And so let's start with these dots. So what they are is if you click on one and then the other, they'll turn green and then red, and then if you click them again, they'll bring them back. So basically what these do is the top one will hide your object in the editor, and the other one will hide your object in the render. The green just means that they'll be on, and so does leaving them off. So basically, you can see that if we check that bottom one to red and we render, there'll be no cube. And if we leave it off, even if the top one is red, it will still appear in the render. So it's just cool ways to hide objects. These check marks will hide things from the scene. It will remove them, so the physical sky and light will not be applied if those are turned to X. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.